And welcome everybody to another Toolkit Tuesday. I'm Dave Etkin. I'm the director here at the Louisville Small Business Development Center office. We are one of 13 centers across the state of Kentucky as part of the Kentucky Small Business Development Center network. Something that's always super important to me is company culture, and it's something that can really make or break your business, especially if you have employees, and it is so important for the stability of your business. So we've had a lot of guests on to talk about this, and one of our business coaches in our office is also an expert in company culture. She has built a great culture in her catering business. So I'd like to introduce everybody. I'm sure you know her, Claire Bridges, one of our business coaches here in Louisville. Hello, Claire.
Hi, Dave. Glad to be here today.
Welcome. Let's just jump on in. Why don't you share your screen? And like I said, if anybody joining us today has any questions or comments, just put them in the chat and we will get them right to Claire. So Claire.
Sounds good. All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Claire Bridges, and I am a business coach here at the Small Business Development Center. Before I started here, I worked in the restaurant food industry and particularly in management for about the past 10 years. So I've got a lot of experience in managing people, and that's something that I really enjoy doing and get a lot of I just really like doing it. So anyways, here we are talking about creating a positive company culture. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll learn how to retain employees by creating a company culture that engages your staff by maximizing their inherent skills. A little bit about the SBDC. I think most of you are familiar, but if you're not, we offer one-on-one coaching sessions. This is a bit more information on the screen here about our services, talking about startup assistance, going through that process with you, as well as then helping you grow, making decisions. This kind of training around company culture and employee retainment is a huge part of growth in small business. And then we can also help you with access to capital. So whether you need funding for growth, expansion, startup, things like that, we're here to help you. And you're welcome to make individual appointments with either myself, Dave, or anyone else on our team. All right, so I've broken up today's topics into 4 different pieces. Why is it important to have positive company culture? 4 foundational HR tools to implement, and then what I kind of call the trickle-down effect, and then kind of a summary overall and availability for questions. So why is creating and investing in positive company culture important? And the first is the beauty of entrepreneurship, which we will talk about. And the second is employee retention. So the beauty of entrepreneurship. I think probably anyone on here that has their own small business or is thinking about opening a small business, one of the driving factors, one is the creative ideas that you have in your head. The other is that maybe you don't want to get, stuck in a box. You want more freedom, flexibility around your schedule and, your day-to-day life. And so you get to set the stage for your business. And that's not only with the growth, the amount of sales you do, the types of things you do, but also just the day-to-day interactions that you have with your staff and kind of that impact that you can make overall. That's something that always energized me as a manager, is having those interactions and having, again, the opportunity to support other people's career trajectories. Maybe they start with you and then they go on to do their own thing, which is fantastic. You get to develop and teach skills to your employees. So whether, you see a little bright spot in somebody and you get to go further with that, or they're ready to receive everything, and you can really grow and nurture them is great. And then sharpening your own leadership skills, because through doing all of this, you're going to become a really fantastic leader and then be able to implement it all from top down. And then, arguably more importantly is employee retention. So time spent on hiring and training employees takes away from working on the growth and purpose of your business. Obviously, you're going to always have to hire and train employees. That is a part and nature of business, and it is a cycle. But if you can do this efficiently and effectively, it's a whole lot easier to kind of maintain that balance overall. And then retaining staff is a proactive way to boost your overall revenue. And we'll see why in these statistics coming up. So I pulled some data, and let me move my screen here so I can see everything. The 2017 annual turnover rate was 26.3%. And then as we've kind of seen, like we all have probably heard of silent quitting or quiet quitting, and just kind of that general changeover. I think during the COVID period, people took a more serious reflection time to think about their day-to-day, what they want to do overall, their career trajectory. So now the annual turnover rate is up almost 20%, over 20% to 47.2%, which is a big difference. So these are naturally going to reflect in your day-to-day business. You will experience this feel of turnover and be reacting to it. According to a Gallup poll, this is kind of some revenue statistics or lack thereof. A 100-person company with an average salary of $50,000 may have turnover and replacement costs of $660,000 or more per year. That's a huge number. No matter if you're a small company, that's an absolutely huge number. But if you're doing, millions a year, that's still something to take into account and be proactive about. And there's the bottom here where I pulled that data from. So all of that said, let's think about ways we can incorporate creative, positive company culture into your workplace, into your day-to-day, and have kind of some processes and procedures so that you aren't kind of flying by the seat of your pants all the time, which no one really enjoys doing. So 4 foundational HR tools. One is the interview process, employee handbook, training programs, and compensation and benefits packages. So let's look into these a little bit more closely. So the interview process. Let's see. So in your interview process, you're obviously going to have to talk through strategies of, assessing whether they're capable of the job or the skills needed, but talking about the work environment during the interview, and if you have that kind of positive culture and teamwork culture, then I think the sooner you implement that as a standard, the better, because that, hopefully they'll catch on and say like, okay, this place is like really focused on this. This is really important to them. Hopefully that's attractive to them and they feel the same way. And then they'll be, gameful employees. So see how the candidate relates and reacts to the work environment that you describe in the interview. And then also, I think this is a common interview practice, but giving scenarios and really kind of pulling out, are they also thinking this way? Are they thinking in a creative, constructive way? Are they a team player? Are they more on the individual side? Thinking about how they problem solve and come to the table with a solution is super important in that interview process. Another thing to kind of reflect on afterwards is use of past interviews as a case study. So if you think along the lines of, okay, like Michael's awesome, Aaron's awesome, like who are these people? What makes them so great? And if you can think back to their interviews, like what stood out during that interview that was so good. what are the pieces that you can like pull from and then try and duplicate again once you are in the hiring process again to hopefully help get better outcomes. I mean, sometimes you hire someone, they fall flat on their face, it just doesn't work out. But if you can have some of these like tangible things to pull on, then it's a lot more reliable and helpful. And then I like to think also of qualifications aside, does the candidate bring an energy to the interview that matches or complements your desired work environment? Kind of just reading the room. Obviously, there's going to be some nerves there during an interview, but if you can get past that, make them feel comfortable, hopefully their, true colors will shine and you'll be able to tell like, okay, this is a really good fit for, my team right now, what they need, what they're used to working with, and how might they then complement or match that team that you've already built and grown already. So even if I might argue that even if they aren't fully qualified for the job or don't have the most experience of any candidate, but if they do have that like matching energy and matching mindset, that they would be a great candidate, because I think they'll pick up on the other skills. And then going through to the next foundational tool is an employee handbook. And I think I see this a lot of times with my clients that I work with at the Small Business Development Center, especially when you're a startup, is you're kind of keeping your head above water here, trying to keep things rolling. You might not have time to set aside to just write an employee handbook, but if you can put it on your schedule, maybe block out like a Saturday or Sunday afternoon or something and put this into words, it will be so invaluable to you, because you'll be able to have it every time you hire a new employee. And through this, you get to lay out expectations clearly. Again, like bring up the positive culture that you want to have, gives an opportunity for you to introduce it from the beginning. You talk about it in the interview, you talk about it in the employee handbook. This isn't some like mysterious thing that's like, how in the world do I attain this? This is because you proactively and consistently introduce this idea of creating that common, like collective thought process, collective, we care about each other. We're a team. We, function in that way all the time. So bringing it all around all the time is super important. Included in the employee handbook. So if you do need to take the time out of your regular day-to-day operations of running your business to put something like this together, I kind of broke up like what major sections you need to include here. So obviously the job description of the duties that are to be performed for their role. And then expectations of teamwork within the company. Again, another opportunity to just talk about what the expectations are, so that if there is ever a conflict or anything, then you have this resource to fall back on. And hopefully it's tangible to the employee as well, so they can say, oh, okay, I get that. This is how it goes here, So those expectations would be kind of your responsibilities as a whole. And then expectations for communication, because communication can be one of those really big pitfalls in running a business. And, showing them yourself how you expect to be communicated with and to communicate to other people. And then showing like what respect to your managers, to your colleagues, and to yourselves looks like when you come to work every day. The place I used to work before SBDC was great, because there was this expectation that no matter what else was going on in your day, whether your dog was throwing up in the morning or your kid was sick or you slept terribly or something, you came, you dropped it at the door, you walked in and said, okay, I'm going to do my best today. I'm going to be a positive reflection of the business today. I'm going to work together with my teammates. And really at the end of the day, like that was relieving, because then you kind of do get to leave all those problems at the door. So just showing that respect mutually for everyone, including yourself. And then also in the employee handbook, being able to clearly define the process for corrective action if necessary. And that's just not even around, positive company culture. Also, obviously there will be conflict in managing people where no one is perfect, but if you can have that process clearly laid out, like this is what happens, this is a secondary action and resulting action, it's no surprise to anyone. It's a lot easier on your part to then take care of a situation if you need to, so on and so forth. A third foundational tool to implement is training programs. And again, this is going to be a huge monumental task in the beginning, and then it will be like a well-oiled machine every single time after that. So, as you're hiring your first or second or third employees, try to, put down what you're doing with them, how you're training them, what works, what doesn't, to develop this holistic training program that I mentioned here, to say, this is the best way, this is the best avenue for giving them the information, what makes sense to receive first, second, third, fourth, what's the best, all around training with the team, how do you structure it so that they receive the most information the most efficiently. Set the employee up to receive feedback and learn the lay of the land. If you are able to make the expectation that you will be giving feedback to them, then it doesn't have to become like, oh gosh, I'm in trouble or something like that. No, you just know that when I go to work here, my boss has like a certain set of criteria. It's positive. It doesn't have to be a scary negative thing. Hopefully they feel secure and taken care of and receiving that feedback and learning and gaining from it, as opposed to having a negative experience with it. It also just helps you effectively and efficiently train your staff, which is huge. Again, looking at those numbers, we talked about it in the beginning of this program. This is a thing that you are going to constantly be coming up against, is training and hiring people. And so the more efficient and effective you can be at that, the better. And then the last HR tool to implement is a compensation and benefits package. So a lot of times with our small businesses, as you're starting, we have a practice of, researching your competitors, what they offer as far as products, services, pricing, things like that. So I encourage you also to do that with how they hire and pay their employees, because if you're attracting that skill set or, type of employee, then you want to be competitive. You want to gain the best workers to come work for you. So if you can research like, okay, how do they keep this in line with what they're doing, or how, obviously hourly pay is a big factor. So could you pay more per hour, like $1 more to your competitor? Could you, have a little bit more flexibility around what they're able to do with you versus your competitor? Things like that can really go a far way if it makes it more appealing for them to work for you. Other things that are helpful are scheduled raises or bonuses, just showing, at the end of the day, you're running a business to make profit. But also at the end of the day, that person is working for you to also make money for their lives and their families. So if you can show your appreciation for it through scheduled raises or bonuses, I think that goes a really long way. And setting that expectation up front to say, like, this is the trajectory of your work here. If you can accomplish this, then this is what will happen. Kind of gives that incentive to folks. Could you offer paid vacation and sick leave? This is different for very many different industries. I come from the food industry, so that is not a very common thing. But if you could magically do that in the food industry, that's a huge, huge benefit for employees. Same with the health and retirement benefits. Other, industries are more, it's more common practice to offer those things. So depending on what you're doing, That's kind of like, oh, well, obviously, or maybe you haven't thought of that yet. Maybe that could be an interesting thing to look into for your employees. And it just helps employees feel taken care of where they work. And I think that goes a really, really long way. Through all of these things, yeah, they might cost you money. You might want to look and see, okay, is this going to cost me more than paying to train and rehire new people over and over again? Or could I retain those employees by creating a more accessible workplace, a more reliable workplace, intriguing workplace? So it's investing in both your business and your employees. So that's kind of, again, that beauty of entrepreneurship, is that you get to grow your business. You also get to invest in people and help them grow and profit and move forward. Next, we will talk about the trickle-down effect for positive company culture. So it kind of works like, up here is the ownership, and then the next level is management, and then finally underneath that is staff. Obviously, that's a very typical organizational structure, but it really comes from you, that positive company culture. It comes from you being the face of it every single day. And, it goes with your brand. It goes with everything you're doing on out facing to your stakeholders, customers, clients, et cetera, and internally. And I challenge you to kind of think of it both ways, because I think you can often get into that external mode and not be reflecting on the internal organizational structure. So hopefully then through you becoming that reflection of the positive culture every single day, your managers pick up on that. They are receptive. They know what to do. They feel supported by you. They see a great example in you. And then they become very skilled at this as well. And then it trickles down then to the staff. And then hopefully the key is that when you have a new employee come in the staff level, that kind of company culture and positive culture and teamwork mentality is just already there. Everyone's doing it already, so that they come into it and they're kind of, put into a bubble of it. And it's like learning in a foreign language, you want to immerse yourself as much as possible. So if you can then put together the structure overall, then you don't have to do every single thing when you're training someone. It comes from all angles. It comes from the staff they're interacting with every single day, comes from the manager interactions that they get and the feedback there. And then the managers know from you, like, yeah, we're doing this properly. We're executing this just the way it's supposed to be. So let's look into a bit more of this info. So the ownership. So motivating your staff is a nuanced practice. It's not like a one size fits all thing by any means. So you kind of have to read your staff, read your employees, think about how you can support your employees to create their best work. What is it about them? Like, what do they need from you? People will need different things from you, right? So if you kind of address that initially, and it's kind of just taking a read on their personalities, their intrinsic motivations, things like that. So thinking, how can you support your employees to create their best work? Provide clear and concise feedback, provide praise. I think that goes a long way. Letting people know they are doing a good job, as well as when maybe they aren't doing a good job. But like, for an employee to know, yes, I'm on the right track here. I'm in the right, zone of where I need to be, or, okay, I need to step it up a notch, or, okay, I'm over here, but actually need to be over here. That's huge. That perspective of things is so helpful, and just kind of letting them know that, and then hopefully fixing it within themselves comes across in a really reflective way. Giving guidance when needed creates an underlying support to managers. So if you're there for your managers and you can help them know how to lead, then you're on the right track. Also, you have to be a different support to each individual. We kind of touched on that already, but just knowing that, like, manager in the kitchen is not going to be the same as your manager for your other staff, or, your folks going out in the field aren't going to be the same as like your administrative staff. So being different supports to each individual, and then taking yourself out of daily operations is super helpful, because then you can kind of get that bird's eye view of how everything is working together. And you're not so focused on those small details. Hopefully you've trained and hired managers to be able to catch on to those things. And then you can just kind of see how it functions as a whole. So if you can pull yourself out of that at some point, I obviously understand when you're in a startup business, that's not the case for a long time. But once you can, taking yourself out of those daily operations can be really, really helpful. And then also creating regularly scheduled time for open one-on-one communication with all of your managers. And that, if you can just give them 30 minutes, an hour each week or each month, depending on, how big of a team you're leading and everything, it opens opportunities for them to come to you with struggles they may be having, with ideas they have, with, different, things, just bringing awareness to you about things that are going on within the company. It's really helpful. And I think it goes a long way. Also, I think it can help you kind of gain advice around, okay, I've heard this from like 3 different people now, like maybe we should address it. Or, obviously giving someone open stage to talk to you about a conflict they're having with another manager or something like that, very helpful as well. But giving them that open support to do so is, again, encouraging that positive company culture. They feel safe there. They feel that they can, be heard, and that they can grow and learn as well. So things that you're kind of thinking about, like, okay, if I want to grow and develop this manager, what is it that they need from me? So thinking, is it flexibility? Do they need to be able to sometimes work from home, come into the office when they need? Do they what do they prioritize in their lives? And that's going to be different for everyone. Everyone has different, family structures. So maybe someone has little kids, or someone's taking care of aging parents. Just being aware of those outside factors in their lives can really, really go a long way, and just it makes employees feel like they're being taken care of at work as well, and appreciated. Another motivating factor that I think can be really big is creativity. So if maybe the job is one thing, but if you can help folks to grow and create things on their own, in addition to just their regular tasks, if you need to do a project, bring in a manager with you to do it. If they're creative and helpful and insightful, then that's absolutely a best use of your time and theirs. And it's going to kind of motivate them to kind of think a little different and grow a little bit more in their role. Other things would be, do they work better individually or collectively? So then, assigning them to tasks and roles that fit that need. People that kind of like to stay in their lane, do their own thing, put their head down, get their work done, maybe aren't the best managers and overall operational people. So just kind of seeing their strength is this. So I'm going to put them into these roles because they're going to excel at it. They're going to feel good. They're going to do a better job. Right. Or if they're great people skills, great communicators, things like that, that shows okay, they could be a great manager. They've got the skill set here. They've already proven they know how to do all of this, but then I think that I can push them up a level because they know, they also have these other inherent skills that are going to be great for this part of the job. And then also, I think it's really important to keep your employees challenged. If they get bored, it's kind of then you just come to the job, you do it, you check out, you go home, same thing the next day. But if you can set a standard, have folks reach that standard and then create another standard, not out of, too much, don't over require of them, but just kind of challenging them in their day-to-days and stuff to see like, oh, do you think you could like do it this way the next time? Or do you think that instead of this way, we could find a new way to do something, so that they're engaged the whole time. Being engaged and challenged can also really help folks feel motivated and want to participate in the culture. So then we move down from the ownership level, then down to the manager level, then thinking, what tools do your managers need to be successful managers? That's kind of your main goal. What can you give them? What support do you give them that they feel like, okay, whatever I'm doing is okay. I got this, and then do they feel supported in their decision making? So kind of going back and talking about, okay, you like made this call in this situation. I think that was great. Or like, hey, maybe let's try it this time instead. Just how you give that feedback, I think, can go a long way in terms of how they feel supported in their role and feel confident in doing their job. And then picking folks that exude the company culture and that you want to create. So that's also kind of goes in line with branding and marketing yourself. But if your managers are kind of like the face of what you're doing or setting the example for everyone else, like, are they doing what you want? Are they exuding that culture of what you want? Are they, setting the bar? Are they reaching the expectation every time? Are they kind of floundering and maybe not? So like, maybe they're not a great fit. Maybe you would hire outside instead of bumping someone up internally. So thinking how they exude that company culture themselves to then spread it to everyone else. And then just thinking some more about like the operational side of managers. Do they offer support to staff members? Because obviously you support them, they support the staff members. It's a big cycle. Is their communication style effective and supportive? Communication styles are huge. I feel like we could do a whole webinar on that, but how are they going to, if you're the one telling them, how are they going to then tell the next person in the line? Is it going to go well? Is it effective? Is it maybe not the best relay of the information? How can you work on that with your managers? Do they represent your company and brand with pride? Are they like, do they buy in? Do they, want to also do this work with you? And then do they address conflict with calm and care? I think that goes a really long way too in creating that positive culture. There's a really, definite way of handling conflict, handling any tough, hairy situation with care and listening. I think it goes a long way when you just listen to people, like hearing their problem, whether that's a customer complaint, client situation, or internal to your company. Just listening to the problem, letting someone tell you their problem can be huge. And then calmly reacting, saying, yes, I hear you, I'm taking your feedback, things like that. So if your managers can really address conflict in that way, it creates a much more calm environment as opposed to rising into like a more aggressive situation. It just keeps everything a whole lot more level-headed and smooth there. And then down to the staff. Based on the framework you introduced, does your staff understand what is expected of them through positive examples? So that's the main key thing, is like, do they know what's expected of them? That's the first place to start in building that company culture. If they don't know that, they're going to be floundering. They're not going to like feel safe on their feet or know how to interact and go forward. Do they buy into the position and overall company culture? Again, it's when you get to that staff level and you're introducing new folks to it, it can be a pretty quick assessment for yourself or for your managers to say like, okay, they roll together, or like, no, there is something here. There's a wall here. we are not jiving here, so that's what you're going to want to be looking for as you're hiring and as you're training folks, to say like, okay, they get it, they're following in line, they understand what we're creating here, or no, they're way off base. And then that expectation for feedback is there so that you can try again. Maybe they didn't hear it the first time, maybe they misunderstood it. Anything like that helps them, okay, I need to reassess what I'm doing here and get on with the broader picture and with the team as a whole. So that buy-in to the position and the overall company culture is super important to watch for. And then also kind of thinking, make them feel included and supported in their day-to-day tasks. That's what managers should be doing. That's what you should be doing when you interact with the staff. And then make the staff feel that they can be open and honest in communicating with you. Just again, letting them be heard, letting them make suggestions and improvement to the workflow. These people are the ones that are doing the day-to-day tasks every single day. So I would hope that they would have improvements along the way and suggestions and different things, that they can improve your overall efficiency in your business. And I think listening to them, to the folks that are there on the ground, boots to the ground doing the work, can be so helpful, because if you then have taken yourself out of that daily operation, somebody just gave a thumbs up. If you can take yourself out of the daily operations, then you aren't on, in the field every single day doing the day-to-day work. So you can lose a little sight of it. I don't think, hopefully you're a master at what you're doing and you don't lose sight, but just listening to that feedback of folks is really, really helpful. And then number 3 is making staff feel engaged and motivated to do their best each day. And hopefully if you create that, whole work environment that is team oriented, supported, open in communication, folks feel appreciated and taken care of, then they come to work every single day feeling engaged and motivated to do their best each day. And it does take such consistency from every level of this, organizational structure, but it's really beautiful when it can kind of flow like that at the end. Let's see. So in summary, kind of employing those different tools to develop your HR department. And I think it's definitely important to think, okay, this is not an overnight process, right? So there's a whole lot. There's developing your HR tools, those 4 things we talked about: the interview, employee handbook, training programs, compensation and benefits packages. That could take you a whole year, to really define, hone in on. And then it will then help, put it into play in an interaction day to day with you, your managers, and your staff. So by employing those tools, then you can put it into practice daily, and it may take some time and it may take some failures to get it right and to see like, okay, this is how it's going to roll. This is the best way to do this. This is how it's received by my employees. I think that can be a really helpful thing to think about too, is, watch how folks engage in it and see their reactions to it. And then after that, you'll gain insight into the efficiency of your operations and staff satisfaction. So that not only, this is aside from any type of industry or business that you're running, through all of this kind of structured protocols, you're going to really grow your business because all of that other stuff is taken care of all the time and everyone feels supported and can focus on the true purpose at hand. And then lastly, these practices are invaluable to how you operate your business, kind of what I just said, but they have a strong effect on your overall performance and in turn in your revenue. So that is all I have today. Does anyone have any questions?
Why, yes, we do, Claire.
Fantastic.
Thanks for that. That was great. That was really good. So Jacqueline wants to know, she says, any thoughts on how to make sure we keep our own biases checked when interviewing candidates and while working with people whom we are different from?
That's a great question.
Hmm.
For the interview part, I would encourage you to bring other people in on the interview. Maybe some of your managers could come to and maybe pick out some folks, like maybe you and one of the managers have a bit different of style of operating. So kind of taking their feedback as well as what you're perceiving. Um, that could be really helpful. And then, sorry, what was the second part of the question?
About working with people whom you are different.
Yeah, I think that's going to take place anywhere, right? Like no one's the same, and you can't really build a tiny bubble with, you know, your echo chamber in there to work every day. But I think setting those standards of like, these are the things we all mutually agree on to like how to interact with each other every day.
Mhm.
These are the okay ways to interact with people. These are things like we aren't doing here. It just keeps it kind of in the right lane as far as like what you're doing, what your purpose is at the time during your day. But you know, in general, just having that open communication and feeling like you could say like, you could feel comfortable saying, maybe I don't agree with that, or that other person could also feel comfortable sharing their opinion, I think is a super important part, you know, just to like
Mhm.
be open to agree to disagree.
Okay. So you've shared a lot of tools and a lot of insights and techniques. Um, I'm sure we've all, it's one time or another, been in situations where there has been, you know, distrust or a bit of animosity between the management, the leadership, and the people in working. I mean, what would you recommend to somebody that's facing that for whatever happened in the past? You know, you as the leader maybe have done some things that cause mistrust with your team. I mean, what would you do to kind of repair all that?
Yeah, great question. I think one is just kind of addressing the elephant in the room, you know, like if it's going around internally with your staff or your managers, you hopefully are aware that there's something going on, and are able to have just an open conversation around it. And then also, if you're in the wrong, I think this is a super important thing, or if you've done something wrong, admit that you didn't do it right. I think that can just like be so huge, and I don't think it's the common thing to hear, but you know, if I were an employee and my boss said, okay, I like did not get that right, you know, um I would say, okay, like thank you for acknowledging it, thank you for hearing it, like then now we can move on to fix the problem and make changes for the better.
Yeah. I'll just say it takes an enlightened type of manager to come to that conclusion. You know, I mean, we've all worked for people that they would never get there, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like that's maybe good marriage advice too, like if you did something wrong, admit it. You know, in any conflict situation.
Yes. 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 So I think what you said was great about the elephant in the room. I mean, a lot of people will just, you know, tiptoe down the office and do some sad eye glances here and there. And then it's always there in the background stomping around. So
Yep.
yeah, that's a tough one, but I think that's great just to throw it out there.
Yeah.
So let's see here. So Jacqueline also, and this is a good one too, because I was going to ask this, Jacqueline.
Okay.
Can you give us some ideas on what you mean by training courses are effective communication and teamwork examples of this? And maybe you could just talk about how you guys developed the training courses that you did.
Yeah, those are good questions. 'Cause it took some time to like years to get to a point where like, okay, this is how we do it. So thinking about in the training programs, like the amount of time you need to spend with someone for them to get all the aspects of their job, whether that's 2 weeks, whether it's a month, maybe it's like a graduated process where first they're just watching someone else do it, next they're doing it alongside or asking questions, getting feedback, and then maybe last they're doing it on their own with someone just shadowing them. So kind of like turning the table a little bit. That can be kind of one structured way to think about it. Another is, I think this is really important, is the order of the information you give someone. So if they don't have the right context at the beginning, then they're not going to be able to grow from there to get all that they need to know to do the job. So kind of having a conversation between yourself and your managers, like, okay, what's the base level here? Like, what do they need to know first, just about the company in general, the history, something like that. Then move on to like day-to-day operations, what they're expected to do every day, then get into those detailed tasks that maybe they need different training on different tools, things like that. But you wouldn't train on those tools the first day because they wouldn't have any sense of why they would be doing those things, you know? So
Right.
just kind of making a progressional chart of how to train them in a way that makes the most sense to anyone coming in blindly.
So Baptiste says, thank you for the great presentation, Claire.
Yeah, good to see you on here, Baptiste.
Says, would you have any employee handbook templates, or where would he go to find a starting point for that?
Yes, I can definitely help you with that. I do have a template, so we can
Yeah.
work together on one.
And look right there, there's Claire's contact information right on the
Yes.
screen. Just take a picture of your screen very quickly and hit Claire up. She can certainly help you with all this stuff.
Yeah.
Jacqueline, you are on fire today. She says, most of the time, work performance is done in a top-down approach. She's considering including bottom-up and side-to-side, i.e. same level employee assessing each other methods. Any thoughts on this? Have you ever used these things?
Yeah, that's a great question. I kind of hope that the information I talked about today, even though I kind of talked about it, you know, how it flows from one top, middle, and bottom, that it still is kind of encompassing overall, and that everyone's on the same page. So like that side to side reference you made, just like making people feel like we're all here together for the same purpose, right? We've got the same goals in mind. And so, yes, I think that is a great strategy to try. And then the peer assessment side to side, I think can go along with the kind of, if you get everyone on the same page and engaged the same way, and they know the outcomes and the goals, then that peer assessment kind of just naturally happens along the way of like, people feel open to say like, hey, we've done it this way because it seems to be the best way due to X, Y, and Z, or, you know, hey, you might want to try it this way. Or I don't know how to do this. Like, could you help me? And so that peer interaction happens naturally, I think.
Personally, I've used what they call a 360 assessment several times and found it very helpful with some of my team. We've used it here at SBDC and some other companies that I own. If you just Google that, you'll find companies that will help you do that, or you can you know, assess some free templates you can send. But it's, you know, it's that holistic that you're talking about approach, you know, where you get anonymous feedback from, you know, your direct reports, your peers, your supervisors, and it really helps you see what how other people perceive you and your shortcomings and your blind spots. So it's very helpful. I would really look into that.
I've also engaged in the practice of assessing your boss, giving feedback that way, which you have to lay the groundwork, right, to be able to feel like you can give them, you know, criticism or suggestions. But I think that can be really helpful too, to Dave's point about like finding your blind spots. You can learn a whole lot that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I've come across that too, where when you have the employees kind of assess your bosses, there's always this fear from them that there'll be some retribution. You know, how can you do that anonymously? So it's often great to hire an outside party to conduct that for you. Mm-hmm. It helps you get some results. And Jacqueline says, she's on fire today. Do you do trainings in addressing biases against female leaders, especially in male-dominant industries?
Man, Jack,
Um,
were you on my call this morning? Um,
If so,
we-
can you give us some quick preview of what it looks like?
I don't know that we have any traditional trainings in place for that.
Yeah.
These types of Toolkit Tuesdays are a great opportunity for us to address issues like that. So we might take that as like another topic to talk on and expand
Yeah,
on.
I think that's a great one.
Because I think it could be great, but gonna put in a plug here for our Women in Entrepreneurship webinar on International Women's Day, March 8th at noon. And we are asking them that exact question. So come and find out what some, real life experiences are in the world.
Yeah, that is a real hard problem that I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
So, I think that's all the questions we have. Unless anybody else jumps in there. Well, Claire, this has been fabulous. Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing
fun
this.
stuff I like to nerd out on and have fun with. So I'm happy to talk to anybody about this stuff anytime. My email is up on the screen right now. You can email me and you'll get a link to my Calendly. So you'll be able to set up a one-on-one coaching session that way.
Yeah, and I'll just give Claire a shameless plug. I mean, the organization that she put together in the catering world, I mean, the culture was fabulous. The turnover was low, and if an employee left, they would often come back. It was just we just did a fabulous thing. I mean, it's a great business case that should be published, I think. So heads up to you. So
great. Well, thank you, everyone. This was fun, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. If